a question for all three of you. I'm going to start with you, Peter. Who are your role? I mean, you have these different talents that you're highly skilled at, and I'm wondering who your role models are, for writing, for have you had anybody you could talk with about publishing that could understand today's world and give you worthwhile advice? And also, in being a poker player, is there anybody? Do poker players help each other, or just try to undermine each other?
No, actually, poker, especially now. I mean, I think, I started playing poker seriously back in the 1990s. And back then, I think it was much more dog eat dog, and, every man for himself, every woman for herself. But now it's a much more collaborative process. I think, the poker players today, a lot of them have groups of friends, and they all share knowledge and information. And as you know, partly as a result of that, partly because of computers and data processing and all of that, there's just so much more information available, that the game has progressed to the point where the edges are very small. And in fact, I'm editing a book right now that is by a guy named Elliot Rowe, who is a poker mind coach. And a lot of the top poker players in the world have used his services to gain an edge. I mean, he's essentially telling them things to do away from the table, be it, nutrition or sleep or whatever, to improve their games, because that's the way it's all going. I mean, the same things happen in professional sports. So yeah.
And who are the authors that have been role models for you?
Well, my uncle, of course, because Norman, my uncle's Norman Mailer, and Norman, early in his career, in addition to being a writer, was one of the co-founders of the Village Voice. So, I that kind of entrepreneurial spirit definitely rubbed off on me. And I think I could point to that as, part of my inspiration for starting Arbitrary Press.
I don't know if you've noticed this about me, but I always think I can start anything. I've started so many different things. Following through is the big deal for me.
Yes. And I would say, Ray, you are another one of my inspirations. So yeah, definitely.
So how about you, Eden? What authors do you pay attention to and have inspired you in certain ways, or that even you try to emulate or steal things from? I think I mean, I love one of Picasso's maybe apocryphal statements was, he was visiting an art student or a young artist, and he said, "I really like what you're doing there. I'm going to steal that, and you're welcome to come to my studio and steal anything you want." So that notion of you can borrow from other people as long as you eventually make something that's your own.
Well, a big inspiration for me in terms of style is Emily M. Danforth. She wrote probably her most well-known book was The Miseducation of Cameron Post. And I feel like if there is that guy who married a book, that's the book I would marry. Like, I love it's often classed as like a YA book, but I actually don't think that's true. I think it is a very ageless and timeless kind of story, like coming of age story. And it's the way that she writes is so like I would just it's almost like everything is very realistic. She doesn't do too much fancy language, but she also has these moments of just profound, like poetic emotion. And that's what I really admire. But of course, I also love I mean, I have a lot of books that I like, but I don't know like authors. I'm not as familiar with like an author's extensive like set of work. There's not one author that I read every book that comes out by them, but I do love The Girls by Emma Cline. That was a big inspiration for my book, as anyone who has read both will probably notice. It's also a cult book, so there was a lot of elements that were inspired by that in my book. And I love Donna Tartt, but I wouldn't say that I aspire to emulate her in a lot of ways. I think what she writes is very specific, and it's something she does really well, and I don't think that that's really what I want to do, but I do love her, and I think she's the greatest. Yeah, I can't really think of any others right now, but
That's plenty. Thanks. And how about you, Alice?
Well, when I first started writing plays, I was one play that was just pure Martin McDonagh, like on every level. But now there are certain films that I go back to again and again and again and again, because I'm like, how did they do that? So Alexander Payne is one of those filmmakers. I also would say I probably go to Nora Ephron at times, and James Brooks. I love Celine Sciamma, who made Portrait of a Lady on Fire, and like Claire Denis. Oh, but I also really love Nicole Holofcener and the way she's been able to create this body of work of these really lovely, very personal films and very character-driven films that actors all want to be in, so she's an inspiration to me as well.
I feel left out now in terms of literary influences, because I wasn't really talking about that. I was talking more from an entrepreneurial standpoint. But, for me early on, big influences were Frank Conroy, Robert Stone, and then the tough guy authors, the noir writers, the James M. Cains and David Goodises, and Raymond Chandler and Dashiell Hammett, and I think somebody reading most of what I've written would look to those writers and see their influence in my work.